a Wikividi Documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. The Open Championship. The Open Championship, often referred to as the Open or the British Open, is the oldest of the four major championships in professional golf. Held since 1860 in the United Kingdom, it is administered by the R&A and is the only major outside the United States. The Open is currently the third major of the year, between the US Open and the PGA Championship, and is played in mid-July. The current champion is Jordan Spieth, who won the 146th Open at Royal Birkdale in 2017 with a score of 268. History. The Open was first played on the 17th of October 1860 at Prestwick Golf Club in Scotland. The inaugural tournament was restricted to professionals and attracted a field of 8 golfers who played 3 rounds of Prestwick's 12-hole course in a single day. Willie Park Sr. won, with a score of 174, beating Old Tom Morris by 2 strokes. The following year the tournament was open to amateurs. 8 of them joined 10 professionals in the field. James Ogilvy Fairley was the principal organizer of the first Open Championship held at Prestwick in 1860. With the untimely death of Alan Robertson, aged 43 in 1859, Prestwick members decided to conduct a challenge the following year that would determine the land's greatest golfer. In a proposed competition for a challenge belt, Fairley sent out a series of letters to Blackheath, Perth, Edinburgh, Musselburgh, and St Andrews, inviting a player known as a respectable caddy to represent each of the clubs in a tournament to be held on the 17th of October 1860. Originally, the trophy presented to the event's winner was the challenge belt, a red leather belt with a silver buckle. The challenge belt was retired in 1870, when young Tom Morris was allowed to keep it for winning the tournament 3 consecutive times. Because no trophy was available, the tournament was cancelled in 1871. In 1872, after young Tom Morris won again for a 4th time in a row, he was awarded a medal. The present trophy, the Golf Champion Trophy, better known by its popular name of the Claret Jug, was then created. Prestwick administered the Open from 1860 to 1870. In 1871, it agreed to organise it jointly with the Royal and Ancient Golf Club of St Andrews and the Honourable Company of Edinburgh Golfers. In 1892 the event was doubled in length from 36 to 72 holes, 4 rounds of what was, by then the standard complement of 18 holes. The 1894 Open was the first held outside Scotland, at the Royal St George's Golf Club in England. Because of an increasing number of entrants, a cut was introduced after 2 rounds in 1898. In 1920 full responsibility for the Open Championship was handed over to the Royal and Ancient Golf Club. The early winners were all Scottish professionals, who in those days worked as greenkeepers, club makers, and caddies to supplement their modest winnings from championships and challenge matches. The Open has always been dominated by professionals, with only 6 victories by amateurs, all of which occurred between 1890 and 1930. The last of these was Bobby Jones's 3rd Open and part of his celebrated Grand Slam. Jones was one of 6 Americans who won the Open between the First and Second World Wars, the first of whom had been Walter Hagen in 1922. These Americans and the French winner of the 1907 Open, Arnaud Massey, were the only winners from outside Scotland and England up to 1939. The first post-World War II winner was the American Sam Snead, in 1946. In 1947, Northern Ireland's Fred Daly was victorious. While there have been many English and Scottish champions, Daly was the only winner from Ireland until the 2007 victory by Padraig Harrington. There has never been a Welsh champion. In the early post-war years the Open was dominated by golfers from the Commonwealth, with South African Bobby Locke and Australian Peter Thomson winning the Claret Jug in 8 of the 11 championships from 1948 and 1958 between them. During this period, the Open often had a schedule conflict with the much-played PGA Championship, which meant that Ben Hogan, the best American golfer at this time, competed in the Open just once, in 1953 at Carnoustie, a tournament he won. Another South African, Gary Player, was champion in 1959. This was at the beginning of the Big Three era in professional golf, the 3 players in question being Player, Arnold Palmer, and Jack Nicklaus. Palmer first competed in 1960, when he came second. to the little-known Australian Kel Nagle, but he won the next 2 years. While he was far from being the first American to become Open champion, he was the first that many Americans saw win the tournament on television, and his charismatic success is often credited with persuading leading American golfers to make the Open an integral part of their schedule, rather than an optional extra. The improvement of transatlantic travel also increased American participation. Nicklaus' victories came in 1966, 1970, and 1978. Although his tally of 3 wins is the least of his majors, it greatly understates how prominent Nicklaus was at the Open throughout the 1960s and 1970s. He finished runner-up 7 times, which is the record, and had a total of 16 top 5 finishes, which is tied most in Open history, with John Henry Taylor, and easily the most in the post-war era. Nicklaus also holds the records for most rounds under par and most aggregates under par. At Turnberry in 1977 he was involved in one of the most celebrated contests in golf history, when his duel with Tom Watson went to the final shot before Watson emerged as the champion for the second time with a record score of 268. Watson won 5 Opens, more than anyone else has since the 1950s, but his final win in 1983 brought down the curtain on an era of U.S. domination. In the next 11 years there was only one American winner, with the others coming from Europe and the Commonwealth. The European winners of this era, Spaniard Seve Ballesteros, Sandy Lyle, who was the first Scottish winner in over half a century, and the Englishman Nick Faldo, were also leading lights among the group of players who began to get the better of the Americans in the Ryder Cup during this period. In 1995, John Daly's playoff win over Italian Costantino Rocca began another era of American domination. Tiger Woods won 3 championships, 2 at St Andrews in 2000 and 2005, and 1 at Hoylake in 2006. There was a dramatic moment at St Andrews in 2000. As the aging Jack Nicklaus waved farewell to the crowds, while the young challenger to his crown watched from a nearby tee. Nicklaus later decided to play in the Open for one final time in 2005, when the R&A announced St Andrews as the venue, giving his final farewell to the fans. At the home of golf, there have also been wins by previously little-known golfers, including Paul Lawrie's playoff win after the 72nd hole collapse of Gene van der Velde in 1999, Ben Curtis in 2003 and Todd Hamilton in 2004. In 2007, the Europeans finally broke an 8-year drought in the majors when Padraig Harrington of Ireland defeated Sergio Garcia by 1 stroke in a 4-hole playoff at Carnoustie. Harrington retained the championship in 2008. In 2009, 59-year-old Tom Watson turned in one of the most remarkable performances ever seen at the Open, leading the tournament through 71 holes and needing just a par on the last hole to become the oldest ever winner of a major championship. Watson bogeyed, setting up a 4-hole playoff, which he would lose to Stuart Sink. In 2013, Phil Mickelson won his first Open championship at Muirfield. His victory meant that he had won 3 of the 4 majors in pursuit of the career Grand Slam, just needing the US Open, where he has finished runner-up 6 times. In 2015, Zach Johnson denied Jordan Spieth his chance of winning the Grand Slam by winning an aggregate playoff over Louis Oosthuizen and Mark Leishman at the Old Course at St Andrews. Format: the Open is a 72-hole stroke play tournament contested over 4 days, Thursday through Sunday. Since 1979 it has been played in the week which includes the 3rd Friday in July. Currently, 156 players are in the field, mostly made up of the world's leading professionals, who are given exemptions, along with winners of the top amateur championships. Further places are given to players, amateurs and professionals, who are successful in a number of qualifying events. There is a cut after 36 holes, after which only the leading 70 players play in the final 36 holes on the weekend. In the event of a tie after 72 holes, a 4-hole aggregate playoff is held. If 2 or more players are still tied, it continues as sudden death until there is a winner. Trophies and medals. There are a number of medals and trophies that are, or have been, given for various achievements during the Open. The Professional Golfers Association also marked the achievements of their own members in the Open. The Braid Taylor Memorial Medal and the Tooting Bec Cup are restricted to members born in, or with a parent or parents born in, the UK or Republic of Ireland. Host courses. The common factor in the venues is links courses. The Open has always been played in Scotland, North West England, and South East England, along with one course in Northern Ireland which will again stage the competition in 2019. From 1860 to 1870 the Open was organised by and played at Prestwick Golf Club. From its revival in 1872 until 1891 it was played on 3 courses in rotation: Prestwick, the Old Course at St Andrews, and Musselburgh Links. In 1892 the newly built Muirfield replaced Musselburgh in the rotation. In 1893 2 English courses, Royal St George's and Royal Liverpool Golf Club, Hoylake, were invited to join the rotation, with Royal St George's being allocated the 1894 Open and Royal Liverpool having the 1897 event. At a meeting in 1907 Royal Cinque Ports Golf Club became the 6th course on the rota, being allocated the 1909 Open. With 3 courses in both England and Scotland, the meeting also agreed that the championship was to be played in England and Scotland alternately. The alternation of venues in England and Scotland continued until the Second World War. The rotation of the 6 courses was reinstated after the First World War, with Royal Cinque Ports hosting the first post-war Open in 1920. It had been chosen as the venue for the cancelled 1915 Open. In 1923 Troon was used instead of Muirfield when some doubts exists as to the Honourable Company of Edinburgh Golfers being desirous of their course being used for the event. Muirfield returned as the venue in 1929. Serious overcrowding problems at Prestwick in 1925 meant that the course was never again used for the Open and was replaced by Carnoustie as the 3rd Scottish course, while Royal St George's and Royal Liverpool continued to be used. At 6-year intervals the 3rd English course varied. After Royal Cinque Ports in 1920, Royal Lytham was used in 1926 and then Princes in 1932. Royal Cinque Ports was intended as the venue in 1938, but in February of that year abnormal high tides caused severe flooding to the course, leaving it like an inland sea several feet deep, and the venue was switched to Royal St George's. Birkdale was chosen as the venue for 1940, although the event was cancelled because of the Second World War. There are 10 courses in the current rota, 5 in Scotland, 4 in England and 1 in Northern Ireland. In recent times the Old Course has hosted the Open every 5 years. The remaining courses host the Open roughly every 10 years, but the gaps between hosting Opens may be longer or shorter than this. In 2014, it was announced by the R&A that Royal Portrush was returning to the active rota, and in October 2015 Portrush was confirmed as the venue for the 2019 Open. The most recent course to be removed from the active rota was Muirfield in May 2016, following the Honourable Company of Edinburgh Golfers' refusal to permit female members to join their club. On the 14th of March 2017, the members voted to admit females. The R&A subsequently stated that Muirfield would be welcomed back to the Open rota. From 1894 to 2016, it has been played 62 times in Scotland, 49 times in England and once in Northern Ireland. It was not until 2011 and 2012 that England hosted consecutive Opens. Brought to you by Wikivideo Documentaries. Would you like